Your seller's disclosures when you are selling your property are way more important than you think. This is Ron Wayyyyy for the Black Hole of Real Estate. And I promise you, some people just don't want to fill them out. Or they do it slowly. Or maybe they fill them out haphazardly or kind of a little here, just check the NA boxes out there. And I think it's the exact wrong thing to do. It's actually far more important these days to have those disclosures done and uploaded into the MLS and sent out to prospective buyers and agents than ever before. And I want to break it down for you like this. So listen to this because it's important. It really is. A physical property disclosure, it tells about any known defects of the house. So that could be the plumbing, the electrical, the roof, the HVAC, putting in the age of the roof and all those items is going to make a difference between someone looking at your property, maybe not looking at your property, or when they're making offers, they could make a particular offer thinking it's new only to find out that everything's 20 years old and want to come back and get things replaced. So that could really cause problems down the road. But more importantly, the buyer needs to know that when they're walking into the property, if it's in great condition, because if it is, you should be out there telling them that. And by the way, if it's really old stuff, it's working, but I just haven't replaced it because it ain't broke, don't fix it. Still tell them that because it's going to, I promise you, it's going to cause a situation down the road. And that's not what you want. You want your buyer of your property looking at it for all that they like about it and not talking themselves into it and out of it, into and out of it, trying to gather information between the agents of things that are readily available that should be on the disclosure and available for them to review when they're considering an offer. Now, the flood disclosures, that's a big one right now. And it's going to ask you, has the property ever been flooded? It's going to ask you if there's ever been an insurance claim. Big things to do. And it's one of those has or has not. Say it has been flooded or has not been flooded. Has had an insurance claim, has not had one. So make sure you check the right box on that. And then somewhere within that, you might be saying in a physical property disclosure that it doesn't require flood insurance. Well, guess what? A lot of properties that did not require flood insurance actually flooded during the past couple of hurricanes in Florida. So you want to be super clear about this. I can tell you this week alone, looking at 5 properties in a single day, 3 had flooded out, but there was no disclosure to tell us that. Now my buyer, they were in a pretty good mood this week. But could you imagine that 3 out of 5 properties, 60% of the homes you went to had a flood and it wasn't hidden, it just wasn't told. And I don't think those people would have looked at those properties having known that they're flooded. Now, I get it from a seller's perspective. I want to make sure people come in there and see what the home really looks like since it's a renovation job. I don't want them to know about the flood. The problem is they're going to find out about it at some point. And then you run the risk of maybe they get all the way to writing an offer, but either they pull it back or get under contract or cancel it once they find out about it. That's a zero-sum gain for you. It actually is probably a really big negative because now you've gone on the market, off the market, back on the market. That's a bit of a blight for you. It's not really what you want. And you lose time on the market by going off, especially if it's something that was going to make the buyer cancel automatically. It's probably best to get that out in the open. Now, there's a lot of other items that go into a seller's disclosure, but I want to just run into the condo area for a second. There is a condo association rider. It talks about your monthly assessment. So that's your HOA fee, your condo association fee. So it's usually monthly, but it could be quarterly, it could be annual, but it tells them how much they got to pay for all the bundled services. Maybe it's the water, it's the building insurance, it's the exterior, the parking lot striping, the elevators, whatever is being money putting it aside for, it's that stuff. There could also be a special assessment of something that's beyond the budget or beyond the scope of what they have saved in reserves. That also needs to be in there, but it could be something as small as a parking spot. You got parking spot number 7. Well, is it inside or outside? That makes a difference for some people, whether it's just out in the elements in a parking lot, like at the mall, or if it's underground, enclosed, climate controlled, a safe place to put your car, especially if you're not going to be here for 3 months and not have to worry about projectiles hitting it during a major storm. Now, any of this could seem far-fetched or like overly, business-like work stuff that we don't want to do. How's that? But at the same time, if you're a consumer, these are things that you absolutely want to know before you spend $250,000, $500,000 on a property. Now, the good news is this. All of these disclosures are readily available from any real estate brokerage, and they should have you fill those forms out on your own, sign them, and then they can take them and scan them in, upload them into the MLS. Matter of fact, they can save those PDFs, and anybody that asks to see a property, from an agent standpoint, hey, by the way, I'm glad you're showing my property at 123 Maple Street today. Take a look at your email. I actually sent you all the documents that you're going to need to send over to your client, so they will have everything in front of them at the time of the showing that they can review. And if they want to make an offer, they'll know everything there is to know about the property. So to me, I believe this. It is way more important to have those disclosures filled out and readily accessible than maybe ever in the history of real estate. How's that one? If you got questions about disclosures or how to fill them out, there's plenty of brokerages out there that can help you with that, but check in over here and subscribe and we'll walk you through it. Just drop that in the comments and we'll make sure that we get to it. This is Ron Wayyyyyyy for the Black Hole of Real Estate.